This is just a little video showing start to finish on this lower seat bucket for a Caterpillar loader. Here I'm in the middle of patterning. I usually like to mark my covers before I take them off the seats, figure out where they'll conform, mark them out. Then once you take them off, you can cut them and you can see how these would like to be attached. Also helps to put your lines to know where they're going to line up. So then after that, I take my patterns and I place them on my vinyl. You need a left and a right, by the way, once you do this. Mark them out, and then you add, I'm running like 3/8 of a seam allowance here. So after I get this side cut out, you want the opposite for the other side. Saves your patterning, everything stays the same. So you want to flip that and place that down here. I already have my seam allowance on this, so this is the exact piece. Now I can set it down and trace around it, cut out a second piece. Another important thing that I learned, took a while, basically your vinyl always has a direction in which it stretches. It wants to stretch like that, but your material actually does not like to stretch lengthwise unless it's a 4-way stretch vinyl. So you want to think about how your cover is pulling around your seat. Do you want it to pull tightly, or do you want it to stretch in a specific area? So in this case, I want this to be able to stretch this way, but I want it to pull the seat cover down. So when I cut out my pattern, I cut it out lengthways. You don't want to cut it out this way. Once your left and right sides are patterned, I like to use a set of pig ear notchers. They got a nice little radius on the end. You can start putting in all your relief cuts and marks for where to line up your pattern. These work really nice. You can just do that and you get a nice little divot in your piece. If you don't have pig ear notchers, you can resort back to the normal method of just using scissors and cutting the notches yourself. It's just more of a time-saving thing than anything. Now notching our centerpiece with our alignment marks so they'll match up with our other two. What I like to do, I always like to work off one side of the seat and then mirror everything. That way you know it'll all be the same side to side. So I got my centerpiece cut out completely. I never marked any of my marks on the other side. I just marked them on one side. So when I go along here, I'm going to cut my reliefs on every single one of these marks so they'll line up with these ones. So here we are now with all the pieces patterned. These get sewed in first, and then these get sewed in after on the sides. Sometimes on complex curves, I like to put a couple staples in so you can actually put the material where you'd like it before you sew it. So that has to continue to curve around there. And then once it's sewed and opened, it'll be one piece. You can see it kind of makes a mess, but once it's sewn, it'll be nice and straight. All my marks line up that I made in the previous steps. So once it's sewed, that'll be that piece. So I'm currently using 3/8 of an inch for seam allowance on this project, meaning that from this edge, it's 3/8 of an inch inwards. This original line represents where I cut the original material on the cover. This is the overhang, so I have something to sew to. The actual sewing part's pretty simple. I have my presser foot down, I have the material fed into the machine. You just put your back stitch in so it doesn't come apart and sew away. The staple's already holding the material in place, so it's a lot easier to guide. I'm trying to keep the material up against this foot here as I slowly work my way around. Now you'll notice here, my sew line is very, very close to my original Sharpie line from which I patterned from on the original seat cover. I just got to remove the staples now and then fold it inside out and you can see it. So now that the staples are out, I personally like to fold the material back over on itself and lay a stitch the whole way across the top of the material to basically double the seam. You can see here I have the material folded over, so I'm stitching into the original seam on the bottom. I'm slowly feeding it through, lining up this edge with my original edge. This is what you're left with after the top stitch. See the seam's folded over on itself. You stitch along here. Here we are periodically checking, making sure that this all fits nice. We got a little bit of overlap here for seam allowance. I got a little bit too much material back here, but that's fine. I can trim that away. And our center section's done. Next step is to attach the sides. These will go on in a manner like that. We're going to staple them around once again. All sewed up, top stitch on both sides. You know, when the cover sits and lays down pretty flat without even no staples in it, it fits well. That's what you're looking for. If there's anything majorly loose, fix it before you put it together. I like to use an air stapler. I personally use stainless staples. Just if you're going to be doing this much work, it doesn't cost much more and the quality is that much higher. You're not going to come back in 3 or 4 years with the staples rotting off. With only 2 staples in it, check it, make sure the cover's well centered, the edges meet at the same spot. Then you proceed to pull the sides tight, then work your corners. So once the cover's installed, this is what we ended up with. Turned out pretty good, no major wrinkles, it's an old seat. They're never going to be perfectly pretty on the bottom, but that's where we're at.